Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Reproduction in Animals. So far we have studied about different modes of reproduction. I introduced that reproduction, it can be sexual or it can be asexual, right? Sexual, it means the type of reproduction or the production of organisms in which two parents are involved. Or we can say that the type of reproduction in which the sexual part of body is involved. Now exactly what we mean by this sexual part of body? Basically it refers to the gametes. What are these gametes? Sperms, that is a male gamete, and the ovum, that is the female gamete. Right, and the production of organism takes place through the fusion of these gametes. Now, after knowing enough about the sexual reproduction, let us understand the concept of asexual reproduction. Let us see what in this session we are basically going to discuss about the asexual mode of reproduction. So let us continue. So this asexual reproduction, the name itself is suggesting what it means. A means what? Absence. Sexual means the part or the things which are related to sex or the sexual part of the body, right? So in this type of reproduction, the involvement of sexual part of body is absent. No sexual parts are involved in this process. Therefore, we can say if the sexual parts are not involved, then the sex of the organism, the gender of an organism has nothing to do with this particular reproduction. Right? So in this case, a single type, only a single parent is involved. Single parent, that means it is not either male or female, it is nothing like that. Just single parent is involved in the process. So in this case, the organisms, they are produced without involving the sexual parts of the body. Usually, such type of process is shown by those organisms in which the sexual parts are not distinguished well enough. Or in other words, I can say that this type of process is generally shown by unicellular organisms. It is of course completely common in unicellular organisms. Each and every type of unicellular organism reproduces by the asexual method. You know very well what we mean by unicellular organism. Of course you must be knowing. Those in which only a single cell is there. The body is made up of a single cell. This single cell is capable of doing each and every essential function of the body. And thus it is leading its life in an independent manner. So this reproduction is of course another process which is required so as to continue the life. Isn't it? Other processes, they can maintain the life, but if this life has to continue, the life has to continue, or I can say the number of organisms are to be maintained in the population, then of course reproduction is an essential process. So in this unicellular organisms, this concept or this property is maintained by the asexual method. Can you think of some examples now? The example can be like bacteria, paramecium, amoeba, and so on. There are lots of examples for this. Fine. In this case, I must say that if this process is going on in this way, right, without involving the sexual parts, then how the process must occur? Getting my point? If the gametes are not involved, definitely there will be no fusion of the cells also, right? As it takes place in the sexual reproduction. The fertilization is an essential step, the initial step in the sexual reproduction. So how this process will proceed in these unicellular organisms? So over here, the cells are dividing. The process is continued by the cell division process. So there is a single cell, it will split into two cells. Or we can say the cell is dividing into two daughter cells, and each daughter cell will continue its life as an independent individual, independent organism, right? See, if there is, as I'm saying, that we can represent it here as like this. See, if this is a unicellular organism, let us say if it is amoeba, right? So in amoeba, what will happen? the cell is dividing into two cells. But you remember, during reproduction, the genetic material has to be transmitted to the next generation, right? So in this case, what should happen? This nuclear material, it should also divide and and should be distributed into the daughter cells, isn't it? So in this process, initially the cell gets enlarged, the nucleus, it gets splitted, it gets divides into two parts, right? It will enlarge and this will form the two copies here. Once these two copies are ready, then further the cell is going to split into daughter cells, and each daughter cell will take one nuclei. So these two daughter cells which are produced as a result of this cell division, they can survive, or they can live as an individual organism. So this is how the process is taking place in the through this asexual mode, right? One more important thing is there, that it is not necessary that only two cells are produced. The number of cells can be many. A single cell can divide into many daughter cells, and for that the nuclear division should take place for the multiple times, isn't it? So this is how it occurs here in the unicellular organisms. There are some other multicellular organisms also which can reproduce by asexual method, right? And those are of course belongs to the lower category. So these lower multicellular organisms, the examples could be like hydra, corals, then algae which are living in colony, fungus, the fungi, it is living in colony. They can reproduce by asexual mode. Now how it occurs over there? If in multicellular organisms it is taking place, then the cells which are dividing, they are living together as a colony, or as the organism in which the tissue or the organ systems are not well developed. The body organization is very simple, as you can see in the case of hydra, right? Whereas in the corals, it is like a colony which is organized into a particular form, right? So this is how these organisms are also showing the asexual reproduction. But over there, the function is performed by the group of cells. Hydra, it shows some level of body organization, and over there therefore the method or the mechanism of reproduction is quite different as compared to these unicellular organisms. So let me show you that how these processes occurs in unicellular or in the lower multicellular organisms. So students, one of the type of asexual reproduction is fission. I have written here it binary fission, but let me just explain first that what we mean by this fission. Fission means splitting. So in this type of reproduction, a single cell, it gets divided into two cells, or it splits into more than two cells. So if we are not concentrating on the number of cells which are produced as a result of splitting, then it is in general known as the fission. So the very first type of asexual reproduction is fission, right? In this case, as I said, now if I consider the number of cells produced as a result of fission, then it can be divided into two types: binary fission and multiple fission. So binary, I hope you understand what we mean by this word binary. Binary means two. So binary fission, it is defined as a type of asexual reproduction in which an animal or an organism reproduces by dividing into two individuals. So of course I have replaced this word animal with with organism. So why I have done this is because it is not necessary that the organism belongs to animal group only. It can be an animal group or it can belong to plant group also. But basically, usually it is shown by the animal, the organisms from animal origin. In this case, two individuals are produced, right? And this type of reproduction is actually shown by unicellular organisms. So I explained it in the earlier slide also, that asexual reproduction is a common mode which is shown by unicellular organisms, right? So by which method these unicellular organisms are actually reproducing? This is by the fission process. Now it can be a binary fission or it can be a multiple fission. So organisms which are following this binary fission, examples are like bacteria, amoeba, paramecium, and so on. Of course, there are the organisms which are reproducing by the multiple fission method also. Can you think of any example for this? Like Plasmodium. I hope you have heard about this name, that is Plasmodium. Even if not, don't worry. You have heard about malaria, right? This malaria is a type of fever which is caused by due to the mosquito bite, right? Female Anopheles. This mosquito is responsible for the disease malaria. Till now, you must have studied this thing, right? But actually, it is not only this mosquito. It is this organism which is present in its saliva which is causing the disease malaria. So that organism which is present in its saliva is the Plasmodium. So Plasmodium, it is reproducing by the multiple fission method, right? A single cell is there which is dividing for multiple times and is producing so many daughter cells at one go. Fine. So this is the basic thing. Now let me explain that exactly this binary fission now. So this process, it will begin with the division of its nucleus. Whether it is a binary fission or it is a multiple fission, in each case, the nucleus is the division of nucleus is the first step. Fine. So in this step, of course, these daughter nuclei are produced. Right, and then once this nuclear division is over, it is followed by the division of its cellular body into two parts, right? And of course, as it divides into two parts, each part will receive a nucleus. Now just imagine if it is a multiple nucleus, then how it is going to take place? In that case, the cell is there. Let me show you here that if this cell is there, right, and this is the nucleus, so in this case nuclear division will take place for multiple times, and during this each part will get surrounded by its cytoplasmic material, and later this cytoplasmic material gets surrounded by the plasma membrane. And under the favorable condition, this main plasma membrane, it will rupture, and these small bodies, they are released out of the mother body, and thus multiple cells are produced here. But in the case of binary fission, only two bacteria or only two organisms are produced from a single organism or the mother bacteria. Let me show you this diagram. Well, earlier I explained you about amoeba. Now this is the diagram of binary fission in bacteria. In this case, the bacteria is there, and you remember that this bacteria is a prokaryotic organism, right? So in this case, there is no nucleus. Am I right or wrong? And if there is no nucleus, then how this process will proceed? So in this case, although nucleus is absent, but there is the genetic material, that is the chromosome, and this chromosome which is present in this region is known as the nucleoid, right? So in this case, there will be the duplication of the chromosomes. The chromosome which is present here, it will multiply, and there is an extra copy formed or produced of these chromosomes, right? That means this step is the duplication of the chromosome, because in this process, of course, the genetic material has to be inherited to the next generation. And where this genetic material is stored, it is in the form of chromosomes, right? So initially, there is the duplication of the chromosomes. Sidewise, the size of the bacterial cell tends to increase. So this cell growth will continue, and further when the this chromosomal duplication is over and this nuclear size is the cellular size is enough to get break down, so it will get constricted in the middle. And after this constriction, the constriction towards inside will continue, and the two cells are produced. Each daughter cell will carry, or it will receive, a single copy of chromosomes, and this cell is identical to the mother cell, right? And in such a case, therefore we say that since they are the identical copies of the mother cell or of each other, so these two cells, they are known as the clones. So usually as a result of asexual reproduction, clones are produced. Further, the another type of asexual reproduction, which is commonly shown by these multicellular organisms, lower multicellular organisms, is budding. So now let me explain this process in brief to you. So budding, it is the process which is shown by multicellular organisms. It is an asexual mode, but it is common in the multicellular organisms. In multicellular organisms, I already told you that they may be some organized form like Hydra, or they may be the organisms which are living together in the colonies, right? So I will explain from both aspects. Now basically you must know that what this budding means. So this budding, it is a type of asexual reproduction in which the new individuals develops from the outgrowth of a cell membrane from a single parent. And you know, this outgrowth, it is known as the bud, right? And of course this bud, from this word the term budding is coming, right? So don't get confused with this particular definition. What it actually means is that suppose there is an organism, and in a specific region there are some cells which are known as the regenerative cells, and these regenerative cells, they are having a very high capacity of cell division, as well as they have cell differentiation property also. That is, these dividing cells, they are capable of forming different types of organs or the different parts of the body. So this type of process in which different parts are produced is known as the differentiation, right? So what happens here is, see, if there is this is the surface, let me show you here. This is the body part, right? And at this particular surface, right, if there are the regenerative cells, they will start developing here, right? And if they are getting divided here, there must be some surface, some bulged out body which you can observe here. So such an outgrowth, for this process to continue, basically this membrane, it has to bulge out, and in this region itself the cell division will also start. So such a outgrowth which is produced here, this is actually known as the bud. So I hope now this concept is clear, that a single parent is involved in this type of process, and of course the cell division is the basic mechanism behind the process of budding also. But the way how it occurs, that is quite different from that of the binary fission. Over there, what was happening? A single cell was there, splitted into two cells, and each cell is a new individual. But in this case, it is not like that. In this case, what is happening? The membrane is initially bulging out, and inside this region, multiple cell divisions begin. And once these cells are formed, they will form the different parts of the body. And as this thing is ready, this bud will get detached from the mother's body, and therefore such type of process is known as the budding. So a very common example is the Hydra, right? So in this case, that is in the Hydra, new individuals, they always develop from the buds. Now, in this case, the another process, the organisms can reproduce through the process of regeneration also. Right. So just don't get confused that if it is not only the budding which is responsible for the asexual reproduction in Hydra, it can follow other modes also. So we will not go in detail for that because that is not a part of your syllabus, right? But you should be informed. You must have this information that these lower organisms, they can reproduce through different modes. But of course they have to be of asexual type only, right? And some are there which can follow the asexual as well as sexual modes also. The common example that you can understand is the plants, right? So now let us come back to this budding here. So these buds, more than single bud can also be produced, or it can be developed in the mother body at a time, right? As this bud is produced, they will develop further and they will form the new individuals. So to be more clear, let me show you this picture. See, this is the mother body, right? And in this case, over here, there is some bulging out. The membrane gets bulged out where the cell division will begin. So if this cell division begins here, definitely you can observe it as an outgrowth, and this outgrowth is known as the bud. Now after the particular number of cell divisions, later on the differentiation will also start, right? And as this starts, what will happen? It will produce different parts. For example, the tentacles or any other parts of the body. So you can see here this this bud is getting developed here with the development of different tentacles and all. Now as these tentacles, they are grown here and the basic parts of body are produced, this bud tends to get detached from the mother's body. And for that it initially bends down and then it gets detached completely and will live as an individual organism. So further development will occur after getting detached from the mother's body. So this is how the Hydra is produced. Now as I told you that there are some organisms which are living in colonies. Even they shows they are following the process of reproduction through this budding process. And the common example is yeast. Yeast is a type of fungus, right? So now let me show you one picture to explain that also. So you can see this example. Yeast is we can say it is basically it is an unicellular organism, but they are all living together in a colony, and in the colony the different parts are specialized for different functions. Right. So in this case, this single cell is showing the mother body, and here is the nucleus. So here, one important point that it is a eukaryotic organism. Fine. So here the process must begin with the division of the nucleus. And as this nuclear division is taking place on the sidewise, what is happening is this membrane gets bulged out. There is some it protrudes out in the at the surface. Fine. So you can see this here in this diagram. The next step, nuclear division has started. The bud has been produced, and the these two bodies which are produced here, or two nuclei, daughter nuclei which are produced here. In this case, a single nuclei tends to get merged into the small bud, and the single will remain within the mother's body. Right. So here further this daughter cell is present, and further it is having a single nuclei. Now it can also live as an individual organism, or it can survive in the colony also. So this is how these the membrane gets produced out, the nuclear division takes place, and there is a distribution of nuclear and cytoplasmic material in these buds and the mother cell. So further they do not get detached here from the mother's body, rather they are living as a colony. So this is how the budding takes place in the case of yeast. So of course, these are just two ways of asexual reproduction. Besides this, there are many other types of modes of asexual reproduction, like regeneration, fragmentation, vegetative propagation, and so on. So we are not going to discuss all of them as they are not the part of your syllabus. So this is all about this chapter. that is reproduction in animals. So with this, I just end up with the session. We'll meet you soon in the next session. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.